Hey, 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 welcome back to Stop It. I'm your host, Emily Erb, and I'm so excited because I have a guest on the show, Lori Ann, and we're going to do a live coaching call together. And I don't know where she's at in her health and fitness journey. We didn't have a discussion before. So she's going to just come to me and ask me some things that she's struggling with, and we're going to work through it in this live coaching call. But before we get started, I would love to have Lori Ann introduce herself, and then we'll dive in. Welcome to the show, Lori Ann.
Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you for allowing me to do this. And for everybody who's listening, I am Lori Amirabito. I am the host of the Be in Demand podcast. And what I do is I help people use their voice and speaking opportunities to get promoted, build their business, and their personal brand. I come from the professional speaking world. So there you go.
Thank you, Lori Ann. And thank you so much for coming on the show. And really, when you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable and kind of share where you're at, it can just be not even just helpful for you, but other women listening too. It's like, oh, I didn't realize I was struggling with this. And now I know. And when you know something, you know how to work through it. And so I just want to say thank you so much for that. It
Welcome.
definitely takes a level of bravery and courage. So thank you. Let's just kind of dive in and just say where you're at right now in your health and fitness journey and what's coming up for you.
Okay, I have been working out since I was a teenager. 16 years old is when I joined an all-women's gym that was behind my home. So for about 40 years, I've been working out regularly. And I think the thing that's coming up for me now being, a menopausal woman, God, I hate saying that. Is that like I feel good for my age, I look good for my age, but the amount of work that I do at the gym, I feel like it just doesn't show. And what I mean
Mm,
by it doesn't show, like I don't have like the biceps that says like, when you see a woman with biceps, you're like, she works out.
hmm
You
hmm
know, I and I'm not doing lightweight.
Okay.
I challenge myself constantly. And the people that I work out with, they're men. They're
Okay.
men that are about 10, 11 years younger than me. Those are my workout partners.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Well, I would just want to say you're not alone in this. I have a lot of women that I work with that come to me and that are like, hey, I'm putting the work in and I'm lifting heavier, but I'm not seeing the results that necessarily I want to see. I want to see more muscle. I want to see my muscle gains. So I have a couple questions for you.
Hmm.
Um, Getting your information right now, what I would say is that if you want to see more of your muscle gains, you would need to see some fat loss. Okay.
Okay.
So, my question for you is, are you currently tracking your food to see where you're at, or do you have any awareness around that?
I do track my food. When
Okay.
I booked this call with you, I had fallen off the tracking wagon
Okay.
and then booked this session with you, and I had a feeling you were going to ask me that.
Yeah.
So I got back on the tracking wagon.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that's right. You asked me what app to download. Did you
I
download
did.
macros first?
I did. They don't have a free version anymore.
They do. It's a little tricky because I've had actually a couple of my students. Yeah, it's just a little tricky where you have to like click out of the Xbox or there's like that little X. You can. There is. It
Oh,
just now it like pops up right away because it did it for me as well. And I was like, oh, this
okay.
is annoying. This should be free. So yeah, you just have to when it comes up, there's just a tiny little X up at the top, and then you can
Okay.
go into the free version.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll remember that and go try it
Yes.
again.
Yeah.
So I'm using Lose It.
Lose it. Yep. Okay.
Are you going to ask me numbers? Do I need to go
Well,
grab it?
that's up to you. Yeah, I think that could be helpful for sure if you have, yep. Okay. No worries. But as she's going, and I see this time and time again where, and I ran into this as well, where I was lifting heavier, I was doing the work, but I wasn't able to see my actual muscles in my body. And what I really needed to do was I just needed to lose a little bit of fat so that I could actually see my muscles. I was just going over like where you're at.
You were
Okay.
being a great podcast
I
host and
was
just
that is that
filling the space while your guest took off.
yeah.
Now, I did do a DEXA scan last
Okay.
fall, and I remember being a little surprised by what my percent of body fat was. It was
Okay.
25.
Oh, that's actually really
Yeah.
great. 25%. Yes. And your age, you said you're perimenopausal. How old
I'm
are you?
58.
And your percent body fat's 25%. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Um, but I feel like I know like in my I'm gonna say my late 30s and 40s, it was probably 18, 19%.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that
like
makes
that
sense.
little extra, I'm like, I lost my six-pack abs.
Yeah.
You know, and it's fair to say, Lorianne, you're 58, you're not gonna have those six-pack abs anymore. But
Well, and our bodies are supposed to change. And so like the your percent body fat when you're 20 years younger and what's the average or what's considered like a healthy is going to look different than when you're in your late 50s. And I think that's just not something that's talked that much about because we constantly compare where we were before. And then when our bodies change because they're supposed to, we're still comparing to that part of ourselves where it's like, it's actually not a great comparison.
thank you for that.
Yeah.
And as you were speaking, that's what I would have said is just like, I don't have future evidence. I only have where I've been.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when I look back, knowing that I had lots of great hormones that were keeping me like low body fat and it was so much easier to put on muscle like way
Mm-hmm.
back then. And I just
Mm-hmm.
don't get those hormones anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it's the thing, I love this analogy where it's like when you buy a new car, right? When you buy a new car, you have to learn all the different bells and whistles and how to be efficient with driving that car. And it's the same thing with our bodies. And so that doesn't mean just because our bodies are changing, we just have to learn how to adapt to our changing bodies. And that's something that most women have never been taught. Right. We've been taught from such an early age is like follow these rules or follow someone else's plans. And what we're doing is we're not actually learning how to fuel our body in the different phases of life that we're in. And so when we can learn that, that's when everything changes. So when our bodies change and they're supposed to change, we have the skill set in how to learn how to adapt. So that's so normal, Lorianne. What worked for you before isn't maybe what's working for you now, or it feels like a lot harder. It's just you just have to make some adjustments. But you were really
Yeah.
never taught how to make those adjustments because that's not what most programming is teaching you or selling you. They're teaching you and selling you a plan that they're giving you, and then like you're running out that plan. You run out that plan for 12 weeks and then you probably get results and then after it it's like okay, well what's next? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Or the plans that I have had. Because I mean, I've worked with like last year I worked with a gut specialist.
Mm.
And if anything, I felt like I put on weight. And I
Oh.
don't know if I felt like I was not happier about that, okay? But there were definitely a lot of benefits, like the bloating went down. Like I don't feel so like yucky. But I'll also share with you, I do eat pretty clean, what I consider to be clean,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
could be up for debate. But I don't eat a whole lot of fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I do prioritize protein.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do track with Lose It, I do notice that there's a higher percentage of fat that's um, that I end up consuming. So when I hear
Mm-hmm.
you say you need to like for fat loss so that we can see my muscles, I like instantly thought of all right, I got to get that, whatever that percentage is of
Yeah.
fat, and I have to decrease it. Isn't it just about calorie deficit?
It is. It's not, and you're not the first person. I have so many women that they come because how many times have we been taught, oh, you want to lose fat, you have a fat intake, high intake, we got to like cut that back. No, it's really simple. It comes to a calorie deficit. So when you want to see fat loss, you just have to create a calorie deficit. And the way to do that is you need to see what you're currently eating. It's like when you have, so your goal for you to see your muscle gains and to see the hard work that you're putting in, like you want to
Hmm.
see your hard work pay off. I would too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so that's your end goal, right? And so now you know you need to see some fat loss. That's going to be your next step, okay? And so you have if think about like a GPS, a Google Maps. You put in your end destination. Well, what also do you need to put in Google Maps?
Where I'm starting.
Your starting point. And that's where most women skip that, where they just go into, oh, I have to, I have to be in a fat loss phase. I have to create a calorie deficit. And then you just like slash your calories and you don't really necessarily have a plan. And you start going off of, okay, these are the foods I shouldn't be eating. These are the foods like I should be just eating clean. I need to be eating whole foods. I need to like cut back on the sugar and the carbs. And it's not really a plan. You're actually just throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping something sticks. Right. And so, and you're not alone in that. I did this too. I did it for years until I finally was like, okay, is this the definition of insanity where I keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? But that's just because what we've been taught. Okay.
Okay.
And so it's really, really simple. Your first step, Lorianne, is just to get your starting point. And how you get your starting point is you need to see what you are currently doing, right? The foods that you're eating, the exercise that you're doing is giving you your current results and you want new results. So we got to get you your starting point so that we can then get your next steps in creating a calorie deficit so that you can see fat loss. So that means that you have to get feedback from your body and see where you're actually eating. And we do that through tracking. When people say they're
Definitely.
tracking their macros, you're just you're just getting that feedback so you can get your starting point. Because
Okay.
what sometimes happens is that so are you familiar with like the phases of macro counting? Have you
No,
heard of
I've
them
never even
before?
heard. I just
Okay.
figured like you're either doing it or you're not.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we all eat macros. We all just aren't aware of how many we're eating. When people are tracking their macros or they're counting their macros, it's just they're creating food awareness. That's the difference.
Okay.
And when you're tracking your macros, you're looking at your protein, carbs, and fats because those are macronutrients. That's what our body needs in the most amount. Those are where we're getting most of our calories. And so in the macro world, what I teach is we go through different phases where most women come to me, they want to see fat loss, they want to build muscle. So they want to start in a cut phase, which is the calorie deficit, where you're creating a calorie deficit. And then we go to the next phase, which is called a reverse, where when you're in a calorie deficit, right, you're eating less calories, but in a reverse, you're doing the opposite, where you're slowly adding calories back in so that you can maintain your results. Because most women really struggle with they're actually really good at restricting. They're really hard at maintaining. And so when you are coming out of your fat loss phase, when you see fat loss, we want to maintain those results. And so I teach the process of slowly adding the calories back in. We call that a reverse diet. So, some women, depending on where they're at, if they have a long history of restrictive dieting, they might have to start in a reverse phase first because if someone's like used to eating like 1200 calories, they're maxed out with their cardio, they just can't do anything more to create a calorie deficit. What their starting phase will actually be in a reverse, where you're going to slowly repair, rebuild your metabolism.
Okay. How many phases are there?
So you have the cut, you have a reverse, and then you have maintenance. And then there is a fourth phase, which women who have been strength training for a while and want to put on muscle faster, it's called a bulk, where
Okay.
you are in an intentional caloric surplus. So you will see some fat gain so that you can see muscle gain a lot faster, but it's very intentional. It's like you're slowly adding in more calories. So because muscle growth, will thrive in more calories and less cardio.
Yeah, that
And
makes
fat
sense.
loss thrives in less calories and more cardio.
Okay.
Yes. And so I teach you how to cycle through them because when we're in a fat loss phase, metabolic adaptation will happen. Where have you heard of that term before? That just means your body adjusts to what you're doing. So it
Okay.
adjusts to how many calories you're eating, it adjusts to your workouts, and it's going to happen. It's not a question of if or when metabolic adaptation will happen. It's a survival mechanism.
Hmm.
And so what I love to teach is cycling through. So if there's more fat loss that you want to lose, we will cycle through because metabolic adaptation will happen, and you do need to get to a point where you have to rebuild that metabolism back up so that your body is nice and primed to see fat loss again. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It's almost like keeping your body guessing and not just adjusting to here's how many calories you like the body needs.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. And this is all intentional too, where you'll know exactly what your body needs in order to see the fat loss. And then you're also going to know what your body needs to maintain that
Hmm.
and get your body like adjusted. Because I so many women think, especially like as we're aging, that something's wrong with their metabolism. Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, they'll be like, my metabolism's broken. And I'm like, well, no, it's not broken because if it's broken, you'd be dead. And the thing is, the same way is like if your metabolism is not as efficient, like so someone who's eating 1,200 calories, they're maxed out with all of their workouts and their cardio, and they're like, I can't see any more fat loss. That's just a sign that your metabolism needs to be rebuilt and repaired. And so if we know that our metabolism can like adjust going down, we know that it can then adjust going back up, right?
Okay. Now, last fall when I did the DEXA scan, I also
Yeah.
did the metabolism test,
And what,
and it came up to 1800.
okay, that was your BMR. So
Yes.
essentially, like that's just
Yes.
how many calories
I
that
can
your
eat.
body will burn in a day, utilize in a
Yes.
day.
Basically, yeah, to
Yeah.
survive. Yeah,
Yes.
without the exercise, just sitting there. And I've done this test probably three other times in
Okay.
probably the past 15 years.
Okay.
So it was real, it came up to 1800. I was pretty happy with that. And I was like, that's what because that's when I was on the tracking wagon. And I was like,
Okay.
that's pretty much what I've been eating. So that was
And
reassuring me that my body was getting what it needed.
yeah, you were maintaining. Okay. Well, and how do you feel? I think this is such an important question too, is like, how do you feel after like your workouts or going into your workouts? Do you feel like energized? Do you feel like your body's
Energized when
fueled?
I get there.
Okay.
I mean, I work hard. Like today we did legs,
Okay.
which is always a killer.
Yeah.
The guys don't want to do legs, by the way, but
Yeah.
it's my favorite day. The past week, I've been intentionally eating more protein,
Okay.
more grams of protein in a day. And I guess I do feel better.
Okay. You feel better. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Okay. I think that's always so important to like as you're creating awareness is to also see like how does your body feel? So
Yeah.
many women are actually under fueling and then it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense why you feel sluggish with your workouts or why you feel so exhausted after your workouts. It's normally an indication that you're very, very much under fueling because that's what we're taught. Eat less, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I would say like going in the past maybe 10 or 15 years, I think this information is so much more readily available
Mm-hmm.
than, than before.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even still, like you can, like macro counting is, I believe, the most efficient and effective tool to see fat loss because it's not another diet. There's no foods that are off limits. But what we can do from all the conditioning and the beliefs that we've been taught from a very
Mhm.
early age, we can take this tool and just turn it into another restrictive diet. And I did it. Like I used to do that with macro counting until I invested in my own coach to teach me a different way to utilize it because it was like when I was tracking my macros, I had my macro goals, it was great. I was seeing fat loss, and then when I got to my results, I was like, sweet, I can just stop tracking. And then I had this belief that means like I can eat whatever. And yes, I can eat whatever, but like if I do that, then it doesn't mean that it's necessarily in alignment with my goals. And so, yeah, that's why I think sometimes it's like I was working with someone the other day. I'm not going to name names, but he's also another coach. And the things like I was working with one of his clients and the things that he was telling this person to do, I was like, "Oh my gosh, no, this is the complete opposite. Like you're eating like he's averaging 75 grams of protein, but then he's telling him to set his protein goal for 150. And like that's such a huge jump. They're not going to be able to be consistent with that. And so there are still things that even if they're using macro counting as a tool, they can still like you can still get really crappy advice from other programming.
Hmm.
Because if
Hmm.
they're still running on this like diet culture programming, it's going to show up in their program, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Lorianne, I feel like I like dropped in a lot of information, but I hope that that wasn't overwhelming. And so let's circle back to like, what would be, so your first steps, I know you started tracking your food. So we
Hmm.
want to get your starting point. So we just want to see how much, like, how much is your current intake, your average intake, so that we
Hmm.
can then see what phase you would start in. Would you be able to start in a cut? Um, or would you have to start in a reverse?
Okay.
Um, and then once we get those numbers, then we can pick your starting phase, and then you can pick your starting macros because the macros you start with will not be the macros you end with, right? Because if you're in a fat loss phase, we're creating a calorie deficit, and then we want you to eventually not be in that deficit forever. And
Right.
so we want you to come out of that, maintaining your results and slowly adding calories back in. So you know the macros you start with will not be the macros you end with.
Okay. Still sounds a little confusing. Like I
Does
need a
that?
guide, but I I think understanding that my body has changed.
Yes.
I'm no longer 35,
Mhm.
or 25, and I just got to treat it differently.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like I think that's one of the
Mhm.
biggest things that I want you to take away from this is that
Mhm.
it's not a bad thing that your body's changing. It's you know what? I see it as like how grateful we are that our bodies are getting to change. That means we're still here. We still get to
Yeah.
live this life.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so cool that like we can actually learn how to take care of our bodies and we can learn a really just like basic tool to do that. It doesn't have to be, Lorianne, it does not have to be complicated. And it's
No.
actually really quite simple, but it's not what we've been taught, you know?
Right. Right.
So, really, just your first steps are just getting your starting point. That is
Okay.
really what's going to serve you so well is getting your starting point, see where you're at right now. And then we can get to the next point of, okay, well, if I am at 1800 calories and I'm maintaining right now, which maintenance is such a beautiful place to be. Sometimes we really struggle with that because we're so used to programmed to always be working on our bodies
Hmm.
when really like maintenance is a beautiful phase to be in.
Mm.
And it's such a skill that, I think so many of us really struggle with. But when I see women, I've worked with women in their late 50s similar to you, and I'm like looking at their trends and I'm like, girlfriend, the last like year or two you have been maintaining and this is amazing. And they're like, what? Like they don't see that as a win, but I think I see that as a beautiful win as well.
Very nice. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you for
Yes.
all of that.
Yeah. Do you have any big takeaways from today that are just maybe like, oh wow, I didn't realize this, or
I think that the biggest thing is about respecting my body
yeah.
and the changes that it's going through. I mean, it's been around for 58 years and
Hmm.
it's not letting me down anytime soon.
Hmm.
And understanding the different phases.
Hmm.
And I'm in an information gathering phase and then let's decide on what that next phase is.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. And we don't have to go right to optimal either, right? Like we don't have to be doing all the things. We can just like start with what's the next little step to do. And that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lori Ann. And anyone listening, and this is for you too, Lorianne, I do have a macro starter kit. So like I go through all the phases. I explain like in a very basic way the science of macro counting, and I teach you how to get to your starting point. I teach you how to get your starting macros. So feel free to grab that if you want.
Okay.
But can you just share with the listeners, like, if, I have some other women that are listening that want to learn how to maybe, public speak and be more efficient with that and be more in alignment with who they are, where can they find you? And yeah.
Hmm. Thank you so much. So, the best place to find me, follow me, and learn from me is over on my website, which is speakandstandout.com. And from there, you can follow me on your favorite socials. And you can also find information on my two podcasts, which is Be in Demand and Public Speaking Monetization Tips.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll have Lori Ann send me some of those links that I can put in the show notes for the podcast. So it's going to be easy to find you. Well, thank you so much. And I trust that this episode served you and also my listeners. And I can't wait to see you guys back next week. And remember, guys, life is always happening for you. And I will see you next week. Bye.